Jiang drew his sword and with a piercing gaze began to stare intently at the Spider Queen, then placed his hand on the ground and used his skill called Growth of All Things, causing roots to emerge from the ground. Jiang stood up and extended his hand towards Luo Sando and the others, giving the order for the roots to take everyone back to the city, and for Little Nine to protect them. The roots began moving towards them until they wrapped around their bodies. Mu Henkyu panicked, not knowing what Jiang was doing. Jacques Yuanyu turned around, and upon seeing what Jiang was planning to do, she couldn't help but feel somewhat confused, making it clear that he alone would not be able to defeat the Spider Queen. Luo Sando's eyes widened in surprise and fear. She started screaming, refusing to flee, promising that she could keep fighting. She and the others did not want to leave Jiang alone. Jiang's eyes began to shine with confidence. He started massaging his shoulder and asked them to stop talking, advising them that it was better to go heal in a safe place, revealing that with them here, he couldn't move freely. Moreover, this monster was level 8, and it wasn't the first time he had faced one. The Spider Queen's attention focused on Jiang. She started laughing, mocking humans for having ridiculous feelings. According to her, they were nothing more than arrogant and ignorant beings. Jiang began observing her in silence. Little Nine felt somewhat curious and asked if he planned to use the insect's self-destruction ability to confront the Spider Queen. She started crying, saying she was very sad. Jiang explained that there was no need to use the insects because if he made all of them explode again, even he would feel bad. So he asked her this time just to take care of the Spider Queen's offspring while he dealt with the Queen herself. The Spider Queen began to touch her chin with her finger, and her eyes started to shine with malice. She mentioned that not even the level 9 sword god had been able to kill her, so there was no way that a mere awakened one of 3 transformations could stand against her. With a confident gaze, Jiang began to show a finger in, with a smile, asked how the level 9 sword god could compare to someone like him, revealing that he was now a master of 3 transformations. Deep down, he wanted the Spider Queen to underestimate him. The Spider Queen's eyes widened with joy. She began to laugh out loud. Seeing this, one of the cult members beside her extended his hand toward her and asked her to stop laughing and act quickly, because if she didn't do it now, he feared that Jailing Q might return and kill her. She told him to stop scaring her, explaining that Jiang was too funny. Jiang's gaze fixed on her, and with a confident expression, he asked Zhaoji to give him a full drop of the ancient god's blood. He also added that this time he did not need him to endure it for him. Zhaoji manifested, took a drop of the ancient god's blood from his own finger, and with a confused expression, asked if Jiang was sure that his body would be able to withstand the blood without his help. Jiang began to smile, making it clear that he was sure. Zhaoji handed him a full drop of the ancient god's blood, which fell to the ground and mixed with Jiang's blood. Our boy decided to use the supreme elephant's body to control the blood. Evil energy and sharp blades made of blood began to emerge from our boy's body. He placed his hands on his back and started screaming in agony. Then Jiang's body changed and his hair turned white. While evil energy was emerging from his body, he forcefully stepped on the ground and started staring intently at the Spider Queen. Upon seeing Jiang's new power, she panicked, not knowing why he had the aura of the 7th transformation or what he had just consumed to have this power. One of the cult members revealed that Jiang had mixed a drop of ancient god's blood with his own blood, something that the body of an awakened one with 3 transformations could not withstand. They were sure that Jiang's body was going to explode and he was going to die. Jiang adopted an offensive stance, and with a murderous gaze, he felt joyful upon seeing that his body had been able to withstand the blood of an awakened one with a 7th transformation. Jiang's gaze fixed on the Spider Queen. He gained momentum and began advancing rapidly toward her, vowing to kill her. As he gradually approached, the Spider Queen started observing him, and instead of panicking, she remained calm, realizing why Jiang had been so confident before. It turned out that he had an ace up his sleeve that allowed him to have the power of an awakened one with a 7th transformation. With an arrogant expression, she jumped and launched silk from her abdomen toward our boy, asking him not to be so naive since there was no way that by forcing the power of the 7th transformation he could defeat her. Zhang's eyes began to shine with hatred. He became alert, realizing that she wanted to use the silk to entangle him. The silk shot out from the Spider Queen's abdomen toward Zhang, but he reacted in time, and using his new power, he jumped, dodging the attack. Noticing this, the Spider Queen felt somewhat confused, not knowing what was happening. Her eyes widened in surprise and confusion. According to her, this shouldn't be happening since she had predicted Zhang's movements. At first, she thought that Zhang had predicted her movements, but then she thought there was no way since his level was lower than hers. While she was distracted, Zhang jumped, and as thunder emerged from his body, he prepared to attack, telling her not to be so arrogant. Upon hearing Zhang's voice, she snapped out of her thoughts and seeing that he was ready to attack, went on alert. Our boy used the skill called Eye of Evil, causing a powerful and giant eye to appear in the sky. The Spider Queen was paralyzed with fear, not knowing what to do. Zhang closed his eyes and began to cover his face with his arm, asking everyone not to look since it was going to damage their essence. Following the order, Zhang Wuxiang also closed his eyes and put his arm in front of his face. He was somewhat confused upon seeing that Zhang's Thunder class had risen to divine level. Yin Zhang also closed his eyes. He was in shock since Zhang had 2 divine level classes, realizing that now there was no way to compete with him. Zhang, who was flying, began to stare at the Spider Queen and gave the order to the Eye of Evil to block her sea of consciousness. Upon hearing the order, the attention of the eye fixed on her and it began to shine. Then, a powerful thunder started descending upon her. The eyes of the Spider Queen expanded. She began to observe the eye and panicked since, as demonic beasts, their spiritual essence was weaker compared to humans, so she decided to resist the attack. Just before the thunder could strike her body, she summoned a blood shield and covered herself from the attack. Zhang, whose body was surrounded by thunder, descended in front of her. The Spider Queen turned around and began to observe him carefully, explaining that although the essence of beasts was not as strong as that of humans, the physical body of beasts was their secret weapon. With an expression full of fury, she moved quickly and tried to attack Zhang using her sharp leg. But Zhang used the technique called lightning bolt, and his body transformed into thunder, dodging the attack. The attention of the Spider Queen was fixed on Zhang and her eyes filled with confusion. She could not believe that Zhang had once again gotten ahead and dodged the attack again. With the speed of a thunderbolt, she did not know if he had precognition abilities, but then dismissed this idea since it was impossible. Not even an awakened of the perception class could do it, believing that it was just pure luck. Zhang turned his back to her and began moving like a thunderbolt. The Spider Queen soon realized that he was moving at the speed of light using the electric field of Thunder's domain. She became angry and started releasing silk, thinking that Zhang was showing off in front of her. In the blink of an eye, silk emerged from her body and formed a barrier around the area. Our boy quickly realized that she wanted to cover his electric field with a web and used the web to feed back information and teleport. Her sharp leg appeared in front of Zhang. She called him bastard and said that this time he couldn't escape. Zhang raised his head, and his eyes widened in fear and surprise. With a confident gaze, Zhang began to stare at her intently and made it clear that the one who couldn't escape was her. The Spider Queen attacked using her sharp leg, but Zhang blocked the attack and then, using the skill called Blade of Heaven and Thunder, forcefully swung his sword. Our boy moved quickly and with a penetrating gaze, cut off the Spider Queen's leg without even giving her time to react. Her leg went flying, and she began screaming in agony. The ant's eyes widened in fear and surprise, leaving her in shock upon seeing how strong Zhang was. Zhai Gang's jaw dropped in shock, realizing that Zhang's cut had the same power as Master Gu Kaishan's, not knowing if Zhang was hiding another profession like the perception class since there was no way he could repeatedly predict the Spider Queen's attack patterns. Xiaoqi's gaze, who was healing the others, fixed on Zhang and her eyes widened in fear, leaving her speechless. For her, it was impossible that an awakened with 3 transformations had a perception ability much stronger than that of a level 8 monster. This was something that not even an awakened of sealed king level could do. Zhang stood up, and while his body was surrounded by a powerful energy, he began to observe the Spider Queen in silence. He was somewhat surprised to see that this strike had injured the Spider Queen, realizing that her body could not withstand an attack enhanced by the essence of the ancient god's blood. He had used almost all his power in the last attack, and the strength of the ancient god's blood was about to run out, so he had to hurry and finish this as soon as possible. His next attack had to be a lethal blow, something that would not allow her to have the strength to counterattack. While the cut leg of the Spider Queen was bleeding, her attention was fixed on Zhang and her eyes began to shine with fury. She could not believe that an ant had dared to wound the majestic level 8 queen. Zhang, who was standing in front, mocked her by saying that a level 8 monster was not a big deal. For him, it was no surprise that she had been hiding in the depths of the earth for hundreds of years. Zhang's plan was to make her angry. He wanted her to lose reason under unbridled fury. The plan worked since her eyes filled with rage and silk began to emerge from her body. She explained that her essence had been damaged by Jai Lingqiu last time, and she did not want to use it, but given that he was seeking death, she decided to fulfill his wishes. She began to release silk. This was the domain of an 8th level monster. No one knew if Zhang was going to be able to resist. Some believed that he was going to die. Zhang could not help but smile upon seeing that she had finally decided to use her original essence to deploy a domain. But with a serene gaze, he revealed that it was a shame since it was too late. He extended his hand, making thunder appear in his palm, then placed his hand on the ground and activated the eternal domain of the Thunder God class. Then he stood up, and thunder began to strike against the body of the Spider Queen. She fell to the ground and could not help but feel fear, not knowing how Zhang knew that she was going to deploy her domain or how it was possible for him to have such a strong domain. She tried to deploy her domain again but was unable. Zhang extended his hand toward her and while gathering energy with a smile, he said there were 2 reasons. First, she was too slow and second, his domain was stronger. She began to feel terror, thinking that this was impossible. Zhang's eyes filled with seriousness, he decided to end the fight since he had no desire to talk with her. Our boy used his power, causing a powerful thunderbolt to descend from the sky onto her body. The Spider Queen began screaming in agony. Zhang remained watching in silence. Souls began to emerge from her body. With a gaze full of fear, she lowered her head before Zhang, promising never again to go out causing trouble and begging for mercy. Zhang's eyes began to shine with confusion. He knew that he could not fall into her trap, although only the spiritual essence remained. She was still a formidable creature. Realizing that the celestial thunder still needed some time to completely destroy her soul, her body collapsed to the ground and Zhang began to observe carefully. He asked Little Nine to keep watch over her so that when there was no danger, she could come out and devour her. Just then, Zhang started feeling dizzy, realizing that his body had reached its limit. He sat on the ground, closed his eyes, and placed his hand over his face. Just then Zhao Chan emerged and with a worried gaze sat beside him and asked if he was okay. This is the end of the video. If you guys want to see the next part, with a worried expression, Xiao Chan placed one hand on Zhang's chest and the other on his back. She helped him stand up and said it was all her fault for being useless. Zhang, who had his eyes closed, stood up, clenched his fist, and with a sincere expression asked her not to feel guilty, since if it weren't for her power to foresee the future, he would never have won this battle. Xiao Chan's eyes widened with sadness. She looked away and mentioned that Zhang was praising her too much. Then a system window appeared. It showed Xiao Chan's statistics. She had been born at the source of the river of time, existed at the same level as time itself, and had an ability called Eye of Time which allowed her to see 3 seconds into the future by consuming 10 sub-bodies, being an accumulable ability with a maximum capacity of seeing 10 years into the future. Currently she was level 0, had an affinity of 100 stars and 18 sub-bodies. Initially she had 48 but had already consumed 30 during combat against the Spider Queen. Her talent was still yet to be unlocked. In addition, she had 2 reproduction methods. The first, called natural reproduction, in which only the main body could generate sub-bodies, 1 per hour. The second method was called special reproduction, where the host could sacrifice their lifespan. Minimum 1 year, each year of lifespan generated 1 million sub-bodies. Zhang's eyes filled with tranquility. He touched his head with his fingers and decided to rest for a while, promising Xiao Chan that he was going to be fine, giving her the order to hide for now and not emerge unless it was absolutely necessary. Xiao Chan's body transformed into energy and entered Zhang's head. Just then, Zhang's domain became stronger, causing thunder to start emerging from it. The attention of Jai Gang and the others who were on the cliff focused on Zhang's domain. Our boy was in the third transformation, and no one could believe that he already had a domain, when normally one would have a domain upon reaching the sixth transformation. Some thought having 2 divine-level classes was incredible. Everyone began to watch in silence. The eyes of Yinzhan, who had his hand over the wound on his arm, widened with rage and despair. Zhang was fighting alone against the level 8 Spider Queen, while on the other side, he was hiding. And if it weren't for the spiritual pills he carried with him, he would probably already be crippled. They were all divine-level awakened ones, but Zhang Chen could crush them as if nothing. While Yinzhan was distracted, Zhang Wuxuang placed a hand on his shoulder and decided to calm him down. With a sincere gaze, Yinzhan admitted that it was frustrating to be from the same generation as Zhang Chen. As a descendant of the human emperor, he wasn't going to give up and swore to one day surpass Zhang. If his talent wasn't enough, then he was even willing to go into the depths of the caverns in search of an opportunity. Lu Sandao, who had her eyes closed, explained that Jiang's talent was extraordinary and any effort to surpass him was useless. Yinzhan's attention focused on her, and those words were like an arrow in his heart. At the same time, the members of the blood cult were at Ku Jiang's underground altar. They formed a circle, and in the middle was the highest-ranking member, who used her powers and summoned a red magic circle. She communicated with the great god, saying that she was his faithful servant, the 7th seat of the Church of the Ancient God. She knelt down, placed her hand on the ground, and with a serious expression informed God that the beast tide had encountered some problems, revealing that someone from Great Xia had the ability to control the offspring of the 9 miasma wings. Just then, evil energy began to emerge from the magic circle. For God, this was impossible. A giant eye appeared in the sky and began to shine with hatred. God's attention focused on his subordinate. He remembered that the offspring of 9 miasma wings had always been a forbidden existence in all eras, and if Zhang Zunji dared to allow his people to raise them, then he would be an enemy of all races. She knelt before him, raised her head and promised that she was telling the truth. Using her powers, she summoned a portal which began to show the insects that were devouring the corpses of the beasts. Upon seeing this, the god could not help but feel furious. According to him, Jiang Zongji had to die and all humanity of Great Xia had to. The subordinate's eyes widened with worry and fear. With a nervous expression, she asked the god to calm down since she had sent the Spider Queen to prevent any unforeseen events. The god's attention fixed on her and his eye began to shine with rage. He used his powers, causing evil energy to begin entering her body, and not long after she opened her mouth and began screaming in agony. The energy of the god began to enter her body, causing her eyes to start glowing. He decided to transfer a bit of his energy into her body, revealing that in a short time, she was going to have the strength of an awakened one with 9 transformations. The god gave her the order to annihilate the descendants of the 9 miasma wings and kill Zhang, making it clear that even if she had to sacrifice all beings in the city, she must make his descent possible. 10 minutes later, once the god's energy fully entered her body, her eyes began to glow with evil. She knelt before the god, and with a determined gaze promised to fulfill the mission. The god began staring at her, and with an angry look revealed that the Spider Queen had been defeated, giving his subordinate the order to go immediately and recover the divine soul of the queen, since a level 8 divine soul could serve for sacrifice. She prostrated herself before the god, lowered her head and decided to go immediately. At the same time, on the defense line of the dragon submerged in the underground cave, Zhang Xuanji tightly gripped his axe, and while his body was surrounded by a powerful energy, he swung it forcefully. Tuyang reacted in time and blocked the attack, but in the process his weapon shattered into pieces. Seeing this, his eyes widened with confusion. While they were fighting, the attention of the soldiers focused on them. Zhang Xuanji clenched his fist and his eyes began to shine with excitement and a smile appeared on his face. He strongly stomped on Tu Yong's chest, admitting that Tu Yong was right. He wasn't going to make it in time to collect the corpses of the geniuses, revealing that what he was going to collect now was going to be the corpse of the Spider Queen. At that moment, a red portal appeared and from an evil energy began to emerge. Zhang Xuanji turned around and fixed his gaze on it. Tu Yong stepped aside, asking if Zhang Xuanji believed that the Spider Queen was their last secret card. Tu Yong took advantage of Zhang Xuanji being distracted to step back. Jiang Xuanzi began to observe the portal and his eyes filled with confusion, realizing that it was an alert. An enemy of 9 transformations had appeared in Chuzhang. He did not know if this was the work of the demonic race. Tu Yong stood up and while his eyes were shining with evil, he began to point at Zhang Xuanzi with his finger and decided to play hide and seek. He was going to hide and Zhang Xuanji had to find him, and if at any moment he decided to flee early, he would launch an attack on the city with all his army. Jiang Xuanji turned around and began staring at Tu Yong. He knew that the demons were crossing the line, but seeing that he wanted to play hide and seek, he decided to play with him until the end. Jiang Xuanji's eyes began to shine with rage. He raised his axe in the air and gave the order to the God Slayer army to kill the enemy. Upon hearing the order, all the soldiers raised their weapons and began to charge against Tu Yong. Zhang Xuanji's soldiers began to fight against Tu Yong's army. The demon gave the order to the demonic race to exterminate the city. Tu Yong's eyes began to shine with confusion. He started observing Zhang Xuanji and asked if he was crazy. He had spent decades defending and now he was willing to declare total war on his demonic race. He questioned whether Zhang Xuanzi wasn't afraid of unleashing a war between all races for the small city of Kujang. He couldn't believe that Zhang Xuanji was willing to unleash a war just for some simple geniuses. With an angry expression, Zhang Xuanji attacked using his axe, but Tu Yong reacted in time and blocked the attack. For Zhang Xuanji this was worth it since from ancient times, whoever dared offend Great Xia was punished with death. He made it clear that if Tu Yong killed his geniuses, he would take his head as a trophy. At the same time, the subordinate of the ancient god arrived at the battlefield of Kujiang. She began to fly and her attention was fixed on Zhang's domain. While her body was surrounded by evil energy, she crossed her arms and couldn't help but smile. Realizing that this was Zhang Chen's domain, she couldn't believe that the Spider Queen had been defeated with this trick. She revealed that a simple domain was nothing in front of her. She used her power and launched a powerful slash of energy toward the attack was so powerful that in an instant it broke our boy's domain. Zhang, who was holding the sword, fell to his knees on the ground. The Spider Queen turned around and upon seeing the aura of the 7th seat, she quickly realized that it was the aura of the ancient god. Zhang, who was exhausted, stuck his sword into the ground and with the help of his hand, tried to stand up, but he was unable. Our boy began to observe the 7th seat, and it didn't take long for him to realize that this was the energy of an awakened one of 9 transformations. He couldn't move, and even if he could, he had no strength left to keep fighting. Her eyes began to shine with malice, and with a smile she decided to introduce herself. She was the 7th seat of the Church of the Ancient God, called the Lover. For her it was an honor to meet Zhang. She extended her hand toward our boy, and using her powers began making the bodies of insects float. She decided to send Zhang and the insects to the underworld. Zhang's attention focused on the insects and upon seeing that they had shown their original form, it didn't take him long to realize that she had great power. She extended her hand toward Zhang and decided to launch fireworks, causing the bodies of the insects to explode into pieces. Little 9, who was sitting on Jiang's shoulder, couldn't help but cry, asking him to protect her. Zhang clenched his teeth and asked her not to be afraid, explaining that if she hid well, nothing would happen. The lover began to make Zhang's body float, and seeing that he was not satisfied, she decided to turn him into fireworks as well. Our boy clenched his teeth tightly, not knowing what to do. Her power was so strong that Jai Gang and the others fell to their knees on the ground, and their eyes widened in fear. They didn't know who was going to save Zhang now that everyone had been trapped by the energy of the lover. Ying Zhan's eyes began to shine with hatred. He started sweating and revealed that they were all going to die. Zhang's body was flying upside down. He started to scream, giving the order to Jai Og to manifest and release the dark demon. Just then, blue energy appeared around his body and from it emerged the dark demon. The beast's eyes began to shine with rage. Once the dark demon fully emerged from Zhang's body, it began to stare at the lover with a penetrating gaze, and upon seeing such a powerful creature, she became confused, not knowing how Zhang could summon such a creature. The eyes of the dark demon began to shine and its body started releasing energy. Our boy's body descended to the ground. He forcefully nailed the sword into the ground, and with an angry expression told her that she should not have killed the insects, revealing that now she was going to die. The dark demon opened its mouth and began to charge a powerful energy ball. Instead of fleeing, the lover began to release the energy of the ancient god. She decided to use the power of the god to protect herself from the attack. Zhang's attention was fixed on her and his eyes widened with seriousness. Jai Og manifested on his shoulder, explaining that although the seventh seat was no match for the dark demon, it still needed some time to defeat her, since it could only act for 10 seconds, otherwise it would be destroyed by celestial mandate. Time was running out, but with a calm expression, our boy explained that there was no other option. He decided it was better for the dark demon to disappear along with the seventh seat. At that moment, Zhang's sister and a soldier from Zhangguanzi appeared. With an angry gaze, she struck her sword hard at the lover's neck, revealing that she had come to save Zhang Chen. Shen Tufei from the Blue Dragon camp of the god-slaying army announced his arrival and swung his sword forcefully, making it clear that he was not going to allow the demonic creatures to wreak havoc. A powerful flash of energy appeared in the sky, seeing that the celestial mandate had arrived. Zhang Chen gave the order to Jai Og to absorb the dark demon. Jai Og nodded his head, then opened his mouth and absorbed the dark demon. Zhang's sister's sword pierced through the lover's body, causing her terrible pain. She opened her mouth and with a desperate gaze begged them not to kill her, revealing that she could tell them a secret. This is the end of the video. If you guys want to see the next part,